first off, just as a little warning, again, I am a writer, not a speaker, and so sometimes I will lose my words or I will jumble them up a little bit. I do much better written down, but if you guys can follow along with me, hopefully you guys will get something out of this. So this is Marketing Your Book, and let's see here, next one. Okay, so before we move on, let's get a little disclaimer out of the way. I, Jeanette Murray, do hereby swear that I am not an ultimate authority on this or any other subject of writing. I will not pretend to know everything, nor should you believe me if I claim to do so. Everything in this presentation should be taken with the understanding that this is based off of my experience only and the experiences of those I know. This does not mean these methods are the only way to success, nor are they a guarantee of your success should you follow them exactly, legal, blah, blah, blah. We can move on now. So, having done all of that, who am I? Which is a great question, and we could be here for hours, but I will tell you just based on writing itself. I've been writing for 8 years. I have been published for 7. I am represented by Emmanuel Morgan of Stone Song Agency in New York. I've been with her for the entire 7 years I've been published through 2 agencies with her. I am published with Harlequin, Kensington, Source Books, which I forgot to put on there, sorry, Source Books, and Penguin Random House is my most recent one. And I am also self-published. I currently have 19 books out, and there are always more in the works, because that is how I make a living and keep a roof over my head and my daughter's head. So, from here, first we're going to talk about cover art. That is like your #1 bread and butter of your marketing. If you are traditionally published, this might not be as much of an issue for you, but you still do need to keep in mind when you are filling out what we call cover art sheets, which is, as I'm finishing the book up, my editor will usually send me just a 1 or 2 page sheet of paper, because the cover artists that they employ at Penguin Random House have not read my book and probably will never read my book. So, but they need to know information from me. They need to know what my heroes and my heroines look like. They need to know what time period it was set in, so they're not putting a heroine from the 1800s in a pair of jeans. So they need to know these things as well. But this is something you especially need to consider if you are self-publishing your books. You need to set the right tone for your book. What is your book trying to convey? Is it a light, airy read, on the beach that you can see a couple of girlfriends sitting under a cabana, reading it for the summer? Is it, a political thriller that's kind of dark and gritty and, lots of murder and things like that? Is it for teens? Is it for young children? You need to know what kind of tone you are setting, because that will change up what your cover will look like. You want it to look as professional as possible. This means that it is probably not the best idea to have Great Aunt Gertie, who just downloaded Paint onto her computer 3 weeks ago, making your cover for you. Bless her sweetheart, Great Aunt Gertie. If you know and you have a lot of graphic art experience yourself, give it a shot. That's totally fine. There are a million great stock art options that you can go out there and cheaply buy a $20 photo, and you can kind of manipulate it a little bit, and that would be the majority of your cover. I have none of those skills, and I never want to develop any of those skills because it's just not in my wheelhouse. So I pay somebody for that, and typically it's a flat fee. I am usually charged about, depending on if I'm being super picky and I have really expensive tastes as far as the stock art goes, anywhere from $75 to $100 for a flat self-published cover. Now, if I want a full wraparound for an adding on a print cover, that'll usually add another $100 to $150 depending on the size and what I'm asking of them to do, on the back and the bind. But it's a flat fee. It's not like it's going to change regardless of how long your book is or short or whatever. It's a one-time flat fee, and then it's done. And I find that is money very well spent. So you want it to look as professional as possible. You want to check the current market trends. Again, I come from the romance background, and so that is my best example for you guys. A dozen years ago, every romance novel you would see would have that clinch, the woman, with the dress kind of partially falling off her shoulder, and the man who's bare-chested holding her while she swoons. And now you don't really see that a whole lot. You'll see, the back of a couple, they're in jeans and they're holding hands, or, they're smiling at each other. They're not as, clinchy. Or 50 Shades of Grey changed a lot of, romance novels, and now it's handcuffs. It's like it's abstract objects. It's or just like different colors of smoke, so it's more abstract. So if you're putting on a 1989 clinch cover that has some guy who could have body double for Fabio, your book is going to look like it was made in 1989, and somebody's going to be like, I'm going to pass. So you want to keep up with market trends. The nice thing about this is that they change. The great thing about self-publishing is so can your cover. So you put a book out, and 3 or 4 years later, you're like, wow, things have really changed. My book looks dated now. Go change it. Again, I mean, that's, it takes a couple of emails to your graphic artist. They do it. You upload it over again, and you're done. Consider sizing. So when you are looking at your computer, when you are either making it yourself or you're working with a graphic artist and you're going back and forth with them, it is about this big, and you want to see every detail. This is not what your readers will see. They will see this or smaller because they're looking at the book on your phone, or they're looking at it on Amazon on their computer, which means it is one small box of like 50 or 100. So you need to keep in mind what's going to look right, not only when it's blown up on your computer, but what they will actually see when they are looking at that in the actual marketplace. That means that your your text has to be very clear. You do not want to use a bunch of beautiful scrawling font that gets lost, because it's usually very thin and skinny, and it's beautiful sometimes, but it will get lost, especially when it's, yay big. You want to make sure that you have good contrast. If I'm just looking at it this big and it's a blue blob, unless you've written, a science fiction book about the blue blob, that does me no good. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of good color contrast. And so that, consider what it looks like. Shrink it down. You get your cover art back from your person, and they say, what do you think? Do I need to make any changes? Shrink it down. Kind of like, take it and almost lay it over something else on Amazon and see how it stands up as far as readability compared to other books that are right next to it in the lineup. Your name is your brand, not the title of the book, your name. You want readers to associate you with your book. Of course, the title is always important, but you want to make sure that your name is almost the same size, if not larger, than the book itself, the title of the book itself. Consider that. And then consider series continuity. So if you know that this is the first book of a series, maybe, and it's a trilogy perhaps, and I've done this before, you just get all 3 books done at one time so that the graphic designer has that continuity. They're not having to go back and remind themselves. They can, create this kind of world of those 3 books at the same time. It might be worth it to do that and kind of, front load yourself. I know it's front loading your costs as well, but it might be worth it to make sure that, your graphic artist doesn't move or doesn't go out of business, and then you're having to try and replicate what you did with book 1 by the time you get to book 3. That's something to think about. Okay, so I did a couple of examples, and I just grabbed some kind of random ones that were in different genres. Is it going to go? Is it? Okay, it's thinking. Okay, so on the far left, we can see, first off, her name is larger than the title. She's not a New York Times best-selling author. She's not a, USA Today best-selling author. She's a brand new author. But the publishing house has decided to make her name the focus because they want to make sure that she is something that they cling to, they count on, and they're like, okay, this is somebody that I want to continue following. That name will stick with you. Obviously, this is a romance novel. I mean, you can tell the softer colors, the distant, far-off, dreamy gaze. And if you didn't have the title in there telling you she's a countess, the type of dress would obviously give that away. Like, there's no question what she's doing right there. She's obviously, 1800s kind of style, or at least not current style. So you need to consider all those things when you're looking at the book. I chose the next one because it's a great example of tone. If I was like, I want a book that has a little boy in a really bright yellow raincoat and he's carrying a red balloon, that sounds pretty cheerful, right? It's not so cheerful. So it is a great example of taking those elements and still considering the tone of the book, because there's no way you can look at this total and go, well, that looks cheerful. I bet that's a lovely bedtime story for my 6-year-old. No, you obviously understand that this is menacing, this is horror-esque. And I don't know why, I just love this book, Move On, La La La. It was my daughter's favorite when she was little. You can play around more if it's a kid's book. You can have illustrations, you can, it doesn't have to be as perfect. It's consider your audience and go from there. So, and then I wanted to do an example of series continuity. This is thinking. Okay, so this is one of my writing mentors. Her name is Kristen Painter. She is not a New York Times or USA Today best-selling author whatsoever. However, she makes nearly 7 figures a year just self-publishing. So this is a series that has like 12 plus books in it, and we'll talk about that later. But these are just the first 3. Look at how obviously they are connected. Like there is no question. If you covered up, the name, you covered up her name, you'd still be like, that's the same series. There is no question about it whatsoever. And they all go like this. So she's got the same text font. She's got the same size. She has the same placement of everything. So her name is always in the same place. Her titles are always in the same place. The titles kind of mesh together really well. The something, 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 the something, something, something. She has the same type of illustrations. Now, she makes the kind of money where she can hire somebody to do this really well. But this is a great example of somebody who has really considered, their continuity and their series and the fact that they want this to be no question whatsoever. This is another little thing that she has done. It's a series about a town that is perpetually stuck in Halloween. So like, gargoyles and werewolves and things like that are all in this town and they kind of live amongst the humans secretly. So, it's a Halloween 365 kind of thing. So she has this little pumpkin, jack-o'-lantern right here, in all of her books, and so on all of her covers. It's just kind of like her little symbol. And so that is always on there, so even if you're not 100% sure, you're like, oh, there's a jack-o'-lantern. So there's that little extra, it's almost like an Easter egg for readers, essentially, which is kind of nice. All right, so the next thing we are going to talk about is website. If you are doing this as something that you want to really make money off of, you need a website. I realize that a lot of times people are like, who cares about websites anymore? Like, is that even a thing? It is. It is, because you own your website. 5 seconds from now, they could decide to pull the plug on Twitter. They could, for whatever reason, think that you said something incorrect on Facebook and ban you. They could completely delete Snapchat, or Instagram could be, sold off of Facebook and made null and void. So you don't want that to be your only reach to the community, because you don't own those. You're on there, you're supported, that's great, but you don't own it. You want a website where no one else is going to be editing anything for you. No one else can come on there and comment negatively about you. No one else can come on and say, I don't like how you've done this, so you're in Facebook jail for 30 days. It is 100% your content. You own it. It cannot be taken away. Did you have a question, Justin?
You forgot to mention YouTube as demonetizations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So any other platform where you are not the owner of that platform, you are running the risk of being in some way negatively affected by that, by their changes. They change algorithm and suddenly nobody can find you on Facebook anymore. These are things that I still suggest having them, but these are things that you need to think about. So I would absolutely have a website. What that website needs, for sure, is a homepage, so somewhere that's you're going to land, you're going to put your current release, or if you have a new release coming very soon, on that homepage. You want a book page, and that book page is going to have every book that you currently have out, plus anything that you know for sure is coming soon. You want to have a contact page, just a little form, they can put their name and, write you, a quick little thing, and it'll send it to your email, and you have it from there. And you probably want to have a bio page. Anything else you add in there is gravy. You can have an FAQ, you can have a where to meet me, you can have a, series Bible on there, something like that. But these are the things that you really should have. You want to make sure it's up to date. Does it have your latest release on there? Does it have a date for your current release that you have coming up? If you've changed covers recently, did you put the new cover on there? Every so often go through and make sure that all of your buy links are correct. A buy link, obviously, is just leading the customer to where they can purchase that book on Amazon or Kobo or iBooks or Nook. So you want to make sure that those are all going through. Check it every so often. Have a friend just go through and click on every link that they can find. Does it all go to right places, or are they getting a ton of 404 errors? You want to make sure that everything is working. Does it have to be amazing? No, because these days people are not going to websites to interact with you. they save that for Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. They will interact with you there. They don't have to spend 25 to 30 minutes on there like looking and being amazed by what it looks like. It just has to be clear, it has to be concise, it has to have everything working, and I highly recommend you make it easy to update. What I did was I just had a friend who does this on the side. She did it for pretty cheap. She set up the website for me because I don't know how to do that. It is a WordPress site, so it is just JeanetteMurray.com. It's not like anybody can see that it's not like .wordpress.com. I would highly recommend that you actually have an actual website, not just a blog through, but I use WordPress on the back end in order to update it, and it's as easy as updating like a blog is what I needed. And from there, she's never touched it again. She didn't have to. She made it so that I was able to go through and add books every time. I could take things off. I could, remove things or put links in there. So again, it was a one-time fee. She made it very easy for me. If I wanted her to go back and change it, I could pay her again a one-time fee. She could change the color scheme or, the layout or something like that. But I highly recommend that if you can do this on your own and you feel comfortable with it, great, that's totally fine. But this is a website, and again, I would actually buy the domain and have the website through your domain rather than just a blog, because again, you're at the mercy of WordPress, or you're at the mercy of whatever. If WordPress, goes down in a hunk of flames 5 minutes from now, I can just change my template over to another one, but I still own my domain. I still own my own hosting. I'm not at their mercy. It would take me a couple minutes and I'd be scrambling, but I could fix it because it's mine. It's all mine. So I highly recommend a website because there's no other way for you on there to have your own real estate, essentially, your online real estate. I do not discount social media, however. I do think that social media is very important for writers. Again, like I said, people are not spending time interacting with people on their websites anymore, but they will interact with you on your social media. So I do recommend you get it. You just have to understand that you're playing with their ball on their field, and they can kick you off or take the ball away anytime they want. So follow the rules. On Facebook, this is my suggestion if you're like, I can only handle one. Kat, I don't like it, but I can handle one. Facebook is your number one. You want a page, not a profile. A page is what you're going to have where you have likes. If you're scrolling through Facebook and you like something, you have liked a page. A profile is where you friend somebody. I am Angie's friend on Facebook. I did not like Angie. Angie is Kat's friend on Facebook. She has liked my pen name, Jeanette Murray. Why does that matter? Well, first off, if you become, a huge breakout star, you can only have 5,000 friends on Facebook. So you don't want to create a brand new profile just to find out, I'm capped out at 5,000, and that stinks. A page also gives you algorithms, and it gives you a lot of information. It'll tell you, what countries are your readers coming from? What times of the day are they on the most? What posts are getting the most interaction? What links are getting the most clicks? These are all things you can get through with a page. They're absolutely not available to you as a profile. Those are interesting things. I learned what time of the day that my readers are most likely on, so that when I post something, they are most likely to get it. Of course, then Facebook will change their algorithms 5 minutes later, and so that it becomes a null issue. But regardless, I suggest getting a page. Again, you can keep it really simple, but when you are on Facebook, as your writer self, not as your, self. So you can make it so that nobody sees it, who you are. So you're like, I write some really interesting stuff, and I don't want my Nana to see what I've done. That's fine. It's no big deal. I don't want my Nana to see what I've done either. No one wants to see their grandbaby writing what I do. So it's really not that bad. But when you create, so I just log in under my personal, profile. I am Kat Murray on Facebook. And then I am able to go up at the top and switch over to Jeanette Murray. No one sees that but me. No one, there's no this page is being modified by X. That's not in there at all. So it's, for all I know, I'm a bot from Russia. They know better by now. But, so there's no worry about discovery there. It's not like you have to create a brand new fake profile, log out and log back in, and then I can be my person. You don't have to worry about that. It's really not going to affect you negatively whatsoever if you don't want people to know. Now, if you are using your same name as your same, pen name, you're not creating a different pen name, still get a profile, or not a profile, a page. I knew I would do that. Because you want to separate the two. On, Kat Murray's, profile, I post pictures of my daughter for my friends and family, and, I can talk about what's happening during my workday and that kind of thing. I wouldn't talk about that kind of stuff on my page. My page is for writing things. Yes, there's some, personal stuff. Hey, I'm having a rough day. How are you guys doing? Cheer me up, kind of stuff. But, I never post. This is just my suggestion. Again, consider that. I don't post anything political. I don't post anything super divisive. I keep it relatively upbeat. I try really hard not to post negative things in general, because when people are coming to, especially if you are a, fiction writer, they're coming to you for an escape. I write romance. I'm not writing, serious political thrillers. I am not writing anything, I'm not writing a nonfiction book about the State of the Union. So if I'm sitting here posting my thoughts on gay marriage or something of that nature, which could really divide someone because you have thoughts one way or another, and I've posted my thoughts, they might be very well spoken, but you're over here, suddenly you have a negative view of what I've of my work, whether you want to admit it or not. Suddenly you're like, I don't know about that. So my readers have no idea, where do I stand? They don't know. Like I'm just, as far as they know, I'm neutral on everything. I'm obviously not neutral on everything, but as far as they know, let's move on. We're talking about the books, people. So I try to keep a lot of that off of there, and that would be my suggestion for you guys as well, unless you are doing something. Maybe you wrote a great book about the State of the Union and it's a nonfiction. I guess you're probably gonna have to comment on some divisive stuff, but that is the persona and your business model that you've set up. If you're writing fiction and it has nothing to do with political stuff going on right now, social topics that are really divisive, I wouldn't bring it into your world. If you're like, okay, Facebook is easy for me, I got that, I can take on one more. Twitter, that is your next stop. Twitter is great for a different reason entirely. I have readers on Facebook. I don't have a ton of readers that follow me on Twitter, but I use it for networking. This is where I find a lot of, so when I was first starting, I was on Twitter because I was following editors, I was following agents. They will do a lot of Q&As that will tell you like, here's a great query that I read this week and I highly recommend it, or the way I got my first deal at Harlequin was that I was following all of the Harlequin editors, every editor that I could find, and one of the editors posted, I'm really in the mood for X, and the book I had just finished was X. So I knew not only am I submitting to Harlequin, I want Alyssa. That's who I'm aiming for. So, I was very specific in who I went to, and I knew she was in the mood for it. So Twitter helped me cheat the system, because sometimes in publishing, it's timing that you can't control, it's a market that you have no control over, and it's editors who are wanting something that maybe is just not what you want, and they wanted it last week, or they wanted it 2 weeks from now. And so when they read it, your manuscript, they weren't in the mood for it, so they just said no thanks. So this is how I treat, I cheated the system a little bit. I followed all the editors that I knew I would prefer to work with, from the houses that I would prefer to work with, and from there, I got in with the right person, and she offered me a deal. So that is exactly how I got my very, very first publishing contract, by Twitter. It was all Twitter. They will do, sometimes they'll do things like pitch me Monday. And you can just give them a little Twitter blurb, little Twitter blurb, 180 characters now, something like that. So, you can connect with people, you can connect with other authors, follow the authors in your genre that are the big names, follow the ones that aren't big names, see what are they doing, follow what they're doing. And then this is also where you can find book bloggers that are the people who are leaving the big reviews for books. And you want to know who those people are, so that when you are ready, you can submit your book to them for a review. But you need to know who they are first. Otherwise, Instagram, Snapchat, so on and so forth. I don't really use them a whole lot. Instagram every so often, very rarely though. Snapchat I don't even have. At YouTube, as I totally forgot to put that on here, if you are doing something that is like a how-to book for gardening, or a baking book, a cookbook or something, maybe YouTube is a great visual aid for you. That would actually be great, especially nonfiction stuff like that. You might want to create a YouTube channel for your author personality, and you would show, a little quick video on, the best way to, transfer bulbs, or, a little, hey, here's a quick, here's 2 different ways to make scrambled eggs, and here's the way I like, but, some people like this way, or just little snippets like that you might gain readership, and every single time that you are posting that video, in the little description, you're putting your link to your website where your books live. So that is another option. Should have put that on there, but I'm not a YouTube person, so that did not come to my mind. I was really thinking hard today. All right. Okay. So this is also under social media, but this is kind of a monster of its own creation. Goodreads, your book social media. Everybody know what Goodreads is? Yep. Okay. So for those who do not know, Goodreads is essentially like an IMDb for books. You can go on there, find the books that you enjoy, and it should, in general, kind of lead you to other books like those. It is very reader heavy. It is great for finding new books, new authors, and things like that, discovering them. Readers can go on there and create a virtual bookshelf of books they've read. They can join groups that are kind of like, like little mini forums for books that they've liked, or series, or books, genres and things like that. As a reader, it's lovely, it's wonderful. As an author, it's like Princess Di walking through a minefield. You have to be very careful. They are very territorial, and rightly so, of their space as readers. They want a space that is safe for them to discuss, to discuss books. They do not like it when authors pop up randomly out of the blue and go, hey, like a gopher, hey, anybody want to try my book? Because they're like, wow, I feel uncomfortable now. This is no longer my safe space that I can discuss books. Can you use it as an author? Yes. I highly recommend that you go and you set up a profile as an author. You want to make sure that, because if somebody goes on to Goodreads and searches your name and you don't have a profile or anything like that, you're not really visible. Your books may show up, your books may not show up. So you want to have a presence there. That doesn't mean that you need to use it constantly, but you want to have at least a profile. It's kind of like your version of the Goodreads homepage. You make sure all of your books are on there. They draw from Amazon, and so you might find that your books are already there. If your books are on Amazon, they might already be on there, so you just kind of claim them with your profile, and now they will show up. You can find groups that will work. I've written a book or a series that is very similar to Hunger Games, and so I find the Hunger Games groups or dystopian teen book groups, and they would probably like my stuff. That's fine. Be careful though. I highly recommend you sit, you watch, you wait, you see, what is happening in those groups. Are they positive groups? Are they negative groups? Are they groups that are friendly with authors? Are they groups that are ripping books to shreds one after another? There are all kinds on Goodreads. You want to be careful which group you approach to start with. Then approach whoever created the group, their moderator, their mod. Ask. Do not just pop in one day and say, book giveaway, hello. You want to make sure that they are okay with that. If they say no, do not beg. Do not continue berating them and saying, I'm trying to give you books, why don't you love me? Just say, okay, thanks. I will take that into consideration and have fun with your book chat. Moving on. So keep in mind when you're, you want to make sure that you are presenting a positive front at all times. You want to be professional when you're, interacting as yourself, as your author. So don't just jump in and start doing giveaways if you haven't been given the okay. Sometimes they'll do them, like, well, we do 2 a week. And so we can put you in, next week's slot or something like that. And they'll have one thread in that group where you can come and, do a giveaway or something like that. Again, you can do it and it's totally fine. You just have to proceed with caution. This is not a place where you can just kind of jump from place to place and comment wherever you feel like it, because readers will feel like their space has been stepped in. And it's kind of like when your mom, starts following you on Twitter and you're like, oh God, now I have to watch out what I'm saying. Sorry, Mom. So you have to just be careful of where you're stepping. Price is a marketing tool. That sounds kind of weird, but it is. So you're going to start with your base price. That is the price that your book is naturally. 9 days out of 10, this is what my book is priced at. $4.99, $5.99. $6.99, $3.99, whatever you decide, you are going to use as your base price. How do you pick your base price? You have to take into account your genre, your experience, and you need to take into account your length of your book. You know, if you are seeing that, you know, fiction, you know, fantasy novels are, you know, at around, you know, the same length of yours are being, you know, going for like $6.99. You can do $6.99. Maybe you want to take $1 off because you're new and you want to grab people's attention a little bit. You know, I highly recommend not underselling yourself. I know that sounds, you know, especially if this is your first book, you're thinking, I just want to get in the door. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes people see a discount and think, not worth it. You know, they assume, you know, this is, you know, in the clearance bin for a reason, and so they just don't want to deal with it, you know. And some people will take, you know, buy it even though they have no idea because they're just like, oh, I love sales, and they hate fantasy, and then they'll leave you a negative review because they're like, I hate fantasy, this is stupid. Well, you sound stupid because you bought a fantasy book. Why would you do that? But they'll still do that, and they'll leave you a 1-star review just because they can. Because, hello, have you met the internet? This is what people do. So you need to be careful about bargaining yourself just for the sake of saying, I have a cheap book. Excuse me. I told you guys I'm not a speaker. Okay, so sale price. That is a limited time pricing. You're discounting your book for a small portion of time, and you know that eventually you will raise it back up to that base price. Perma-free, it is always free. You will never bump it back up to a, you know, paid book. The loss leader. Usually what they'll do is people will make the first book of their series free, perma-free. This is to draw you in. This is your, you know, no pressure buy situation. This is what, if you think back to Kristen Painter, she's got a series with like 12 books now and going. That first one is free, and it has been free for years, and it will always be free because, you know, she finds that, you know, that loss leader is completely worth it for her. You know, it brings people in, and it keeps people reading, and they get hooked on this little world that she has built. And yes, she does have, you know, people who will say, I hate romance. Well, you downloaded a romance novel, you dum-dum, so what were you expecting? But she has given away enough of them and built her brand through this, and, you know, her marketing is so obviously romance that sometimes, you know, it's easier for her to get away with that. You do not want to put on a sale or put your book perma-free just because. You want to have a very specific reason for that. I'm running a lot of ads, and so I'm going to make mine perma-free for, you know, a little bit. Well, I'm going to do a sale price because I have a BookBub ad. We'll get into BookBub in a little bit. You don't just sit there and say, well, I don't know, I'm just kind of feeling like maybe it's not worth it, and so I'll just like bump it down, or oh, sales dropped, I'll just move it down. Have a reason. Have a reason for that. If sales are dropping, maybe it's not your price, maybe it's your cover is not enticing people, maybe your blurb is not doing a great job of selling your book, maybe you don't have, you know, you're not fresh anymore because you haven't released anything in a year. So there are other reasons besides just dropping the price, because again, dropping the price sometimes can be positive, sometimes it can make people think this is not worth it. You really have to pay attention though. Like I said, you know, there are so many different ways to look at pricing, and everybody will have a different example of why pricing at their price was the right thing to do. Some people, they go based solely off, you know, numbers. If I wrote the book, you know, between 25 and 50,000 words, I'm charging $2.99. 50 to 75, I'm charging $3. Like that, you know, they have their own little model, and maybe that works for them, and maybe that doesn't. You know, be flexible, be willing to consider, but don't just move the price every 5 seconds, you know, like an accordion, thinking that that's going to change something. It won't. Consider other reasons as well, because you want to make money with this book. If you list it at $2.99 or above, you're making 70% of every sale. If you list it at $2.98 or below, you're making 30%. So, you know, maybe you're thinking, I'll get more readers at 99 cents because it's cheap and, you know, more people will buy it. Yeah, but how many more people do you have to have buy that book to equal, you know, one more, you know, 2 sales at $2.99? So consider that as well. Staying fresh. You want to stay in Amazon's good graces because they are the driving force behind everything. I think I said it last time in my self-publishing, but in general, Amazon is about 50 to 60% of all of my sales. Barnes & Noble, iBooks, and Kobo make up the other 40 to 50% any given month combined. So Amazon, whether we like it or whether we hate it, Amazon is our juggernaut, and we have to consider what they are doing before we start looking at other things. So you're saying, well, I have 2 or 3 books out, and it's been a slow summer, and so I haven't written anything. I don't have anything coming out anytime soon. What do I do? Try a couple of different things. Bundle something. Bundle your first 2 books or your first 3 books. If you have a series, maybe put your first, second, and third book together in anticipation for a limited time. It's a limited time sale, and take $2 or $3 off the price of what they would be if you bought them separately. You can go in with other authors that write similar to you, and you can create a really small, dash off a 10,000 word, short story. 5 or 6 authors have done that, and you have a full-sized book. Make sure that your back matter says things, about you, and people are buying it to learn new authors. You want to stay fresh. They have about a 30-day window where you are a new release, and after that you kind of fall off the cliff unless you have something else pushing your sales, like a nice big marketing team, which I don't have that kind of budget. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have that kind of budget. So staying fresh is a huge one, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But those are some ways to kind of cheat staying fresh, even if you don't have a new book coming out. You already wrote the stuff, so you can reuse it and repackage it as many times as you want. Just make very clear, this is a bundle of these titles, so that somebody who's already bought that book does not rebuy it thinking they're getting new material. Just be careful about that. Okay, so reviews. These will drive sales, especially again on Amazon. Where can you get reviews from books other than your high school English teacher and your best friend, both of which are probably going to mistakenly say, "I love Susie, and she's the sweetest kid ever. She was such a good student, and she's written this book, and it's amazing, and I just love her." That's not going to help you at all. You want reviews from people who do this regularly. You want reviews from people who are not connected to you. You want reviews from people who are a certified top 100, top 1,000 reviewer on Amazon. How do you get them? Look for book bloggers. If they post to Amazon, here's the deal with book bloggers. They used to be a huge deal. 6, 7, 8 years ago, probably more like 8 years ago, they used to be a huge deal. If they had a really nice big book blog that they ran, people were following those on social media and things like that. They're not doing that anymore. But you need to make sure, they'll still put a book review up on their blog. What you want to make sure though is that they are also putting that same review on Amazon and Barnes & Noble if they can, and Kobo if they can't. Like, they're putting that review other places. Because if it's not on Amazon, it's like it never happened. That's just the way it is. If it's not on Amazon, it's like it never happened. It's lovely if they want to post it on, the same thing on, BookBub and, put it on their Facebook page. That's great. But if it's not on Amazon, it's like it never happened to buyers. So you need to make sure if you are going to a book blogger and saying, "Will you read my book?" that they are the kind of blogger that will follow through and put it on, third-party sales sites as well. You also want to look for prolific readers and reviewers on Amazon. And these are the kinds of things that you will, follow the books. This is again knowing your market. Who's big right now? Who's reading them? Go find those people and then essentially query them. Send them a quick email through their contact page. "Hi, my name is Susie, and I wrote a book, The Tiger's Eye. It is very similar to the Hunger Games series, which I see that you enjoyed in your book review. It is about, small paragraph. It is, 70,000 words long. I would love to give you a copy in exchange for an honest review. Are you interested?" Don't just, send your book everywhere, because A, you don't know who's getting it now, and B, you're going to annoy them because you've now spammed them. Politely query them. If they say, "Yes, please send me your book," then great, send it to them. If they don't answer, or they're like, "Sorry, we're full right now," leave it. Maybe come back in 6 months if you have another book, or try again in a couple of months with the same book. But it's very similar to querying agents or editors. You're sending them a quick email saying, "Here's what my book is like. I see that you liked that kind of genre. What's the point of sending your cookbook to somebody who only reads dystopian, horror? There is no point. You're not going to like that review. I'll tell you that right now. So be very careful who you're sending it to. There are also places, this can take hours of your day, but it's free. So there's that. There is a subscription site called NetGalley. This is what publishers use. They are very well-vetted bloggers and reviewers who will take their reviews to the right sites. They are vetted by NetGalley. They do follow through with the books. They are not just, falling off into the abyss. The problem with NetGalley is that it is a paid subscription site. So you are paying essentially for access, and then you get to put your book up. This is something that they do for publishers. This is a publishing thing. My publishers use NetGalley. It is very expensive. So essentially what some self-published authors have done now is they create this little cohort of authors, and they will go in and purchase a year subscription together. And then they each get a certain number of slots per year to post their book, because you can only post a book for X number of weeks, or maybe it's like 3 weeks or a month. I can't remember exactly the back matter on that one. So if you know other authors who are interested and are okay dropping some cash to reach a large number of reviewers like that, it might be worth your time. So you've got, it's kind of the same theory of, hiring a housekeeper. I can clean my own house, for several hours a week, and it's going to be free, or I could pay someone to do it in 2 hours and have the rest of my life to, live. Like, which one do I want? Which one do I value more, my time or my money? You have to consider that. Do not pay for reviews. If somebody says, yes, I will review your book for $50, run the other way because they're full of crap, okay? Don't bother with them. NetGalley is not quite the same thing. What you're doing is, buying that subscription to, have access to, but no blogger or reviewer, once you get into NetGalley, is going to say, I'll do that for 20. You're in, the end. Like, either they want your book and they'll read it and they'll review it, or they won't. But do not pay for reviews. It's unethical, first off. It will get you burned. You will be removed if anybody ever finds out that you were doing this. You will be removed from Amazon and blocked forever. You will be removed from Goodreads. You will be removed from all the places that you want to sell books. It is not worth it. Don't do that. Also, pretty sure that most of those reviews are full of poop anyway. So, not even worth it on the quality scale. Okay, so other places to market your books that we have not already discussed. Inside your own book. It is yours, just like your website. Use that space. You're not paying anything extra for it. You're creating it. So use it. My book, my book, my book, my book, my book, the end. Now what? Go look at some of your other books. All right, so look at the books that are on your bookshelf. What have they done? Look at the books that are on your e-reader. What have they done? Now, if it's just an e-book, I didn't mean to say just, but if it is an e-book, you have a lot of leeway. You can link a ton of stuff in there. You can put a link in there so that literally I'm on my phone and I'm like, man, this is a good book. I want more. Click. And there I am. I'm on that person's website, or I'm being taken to the very next book. If this is, book one of a series, heck yeah, and I loved it. I want book 2. And so if it's literally the end, flip, oh, there's a link to book 2. It's mine. 30 seconds or less. Done. I have completely removed any any friction whatsoever to buying the next book. And that is, one of the best things about marketing and getting your books out there is you want to remove as much friction as possible. That's why we have a one-click now for Amazon, because Amazon was removing that every time I want to buy something, I have to put in my credit card number and I have to put in where I want it shipped. You just go, click mine. It's a lot easier now. So you can link to your social media if you have Facebook, or come follow me on Facebook, or I'm always playing around on Twitter. Come talk to me. You can put an excerpt from your next book or from your other books if you don't have any that are coming up right now. It is yours. Use it. Use it wisely. I have had, again, my mentor Kristen has done kind of studies about, she's able to track where people are coming to her website and how many people are coming there, and she's finding an amazing click-through rate from the inside of her books. So it is worth it, and it costs you $0. So that is a huge, huge thing to do. It is yours, it costs you nothing. Put it in there. You can use a BookBub service. Anybody heard of BookBub before? Okay. If you have not, just in case, BookBub is essentially a newsletter subscription service. It's free. You get a newsletter once a day if you're just a pure reader. You go on to BookBub, you put your email in, and you tell them what kind of books you love. I love, fantasy, and I love, political thrillers, and I love nonfiction, or whatever. And then once a day, BookBub will send you an email with links to books that are discounted. You know, this book used to be $5.99. You know, today only it's 99 cents, or it's free, or whatever. If you are, and this goes back to that discounting for a purpose kind of thing. If you can get a BookBub ad, and they cost money. I mean, we're talking, and it depends on the genre. The more popular the genre, the more expensive, you know, that the BookBub ad is going to be. But you're reaching millions. You know, you are literally in somebody's inbox. So it might be worth $500 depending on your advertising budget, or it might be worth $120 if it's a smaller genre. So that, you know, I would 100% put a book free if I was able to get a BookBub ad, and you can't always necessarily get them. You know, they rotate through. But if you apply and you get one, a book's going free, and I'm going to cash in, because the number of people who will buy that book because it's discounted or free from BookBub who have said they want that genre, like they're not getting that book because, you know, they don't care about that genre. They're getting that book specifically because they said, I read this genre, send it to me. The read-through success rate on that is huge. So you put book 1 on there for 99 cents or free when it's normally $4.99 or $5.99, they will read the rest of your series. They just will. And so yes, you've lost money by giving your product away necessarily. You will make it back. BookBub has a great reputation. BookBub has a great read-through success rate. So that is something to consider. But BookBub is not going to take you. Again, you have to apply and they'll say yes or no. And some of that's just luck. You know, oh, we had a book that was very similar to yours yesterday. So, you know, try again in 30 days. Sometimes you can't do anything about that. But BookBub will not take a book that the blurb doesn't sound right. They will not take a book where the cover looks like you let your 8-year-old do it, unless the whole point is that your 8-year-old helped you write this book, and that was the entire point of the book. So you have to have the package ready to go. And you also have to have some reviews. I believe BookBub is currently running on 50 reviews, maybe, I think, is kind of what they want to see on that book that you were discounting. So this isn't something you would do 5 seconds after you release your book. You want to go through, have reviews, get people in there, get people interested, and then you can discount from there. All right, this goes to that little disclaimer that I read at the beginning about how I am not, my experience might not be your experience, but these are things that I and fellow writers that I talk to have found to be not worth it. Print ads, nobody cares. No one cares. Unless you're, you know, Dean Koontz and you're in the, you know, a New York Times best-selling author who's, you know, in the New York Times right now, it's just not worth your money. It just isn't. Ads on blogs. Again, people are not necessarily going to the blogs any longer. So getting an ad on there, it just doesn't work. Big writer signings, are they fun? Sometimes they can be. Do I see them as money makers? Never. Do I, you know, sometimes I'll do them because I want to, because I have a free weekend, because I like the people that I would be hanging around with, because, I don't know, I'm lonely, because this is a really isolating job sometimes. But that doesn't mean that they are going to be profitable for you. They won't. So if you're paying $50 to sit at a table, know that most likely, unless it is a, you know, unless you're, you know, a huge fantasy writer who is at Comic-Con, you're probably not making that $50 back. That's just the way it is. Is that a $50 well spent? If you enjoyed yourself, probably. Yeah, that's great. As far as marketing and finding new readers, maybe you'll get 3. Was that worth $50? I don't know. That's up to you. Author events, like this one right now. I am making $0 right now. I am doing this because I enjoy teaching. This is what I do. I love talking with people about writing. I'm making no money off of this, and I'm totally fine with that. It's totally cool. If you are doing author talks at local places, just know that you're doing it because this is what you like to do. This is not necessarily a moneymaker for you. This is not going to be something that gets your name out there to the public at large. Again, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I like teaching. I like sharing this knowledge with you guys. I'm not making any money, and that's totally okay for me. If you are somebody who only wants, you know, income-producing activities, this isn't the way to do it. So keep that in mind. So stinkers might not be accurate because I enjoy doing this, but I'm not making any cash out of it. So keep that in mind. Where have I spent my money and considered it way necessary and worth it? That, going back to that website domain, which is not that expensive, hosting, not that expensive, and the one-time fee for my website setup. Again, you can get that one time. Can you have somebody that will maintain your website for you? Absolutely. I don't need that because I can manage through. If you're like, I can't, fine. Have it set up so it's very static. There's no blog, there's no, Facebook ticker or Twitter ticker or anything like that. And you just maybe have to pay them, like $20 to go in and add your new book or something. You can do that. You can find that. If you're, again, you were raised more in the blogging, world and you kind of know and can figure that out, do that. Have that one-time setup. Maybe you can just set up the website yourself. Awesome, do it. But, purchasing your own domain and your hosting, those are huge and you need those. Remember, that is the one website or internet real estate that you own. That is the one real estate that you truly own, that no one can come around and say, I don't like what you're doing, so goodbye. Nobody can swat it out of your hand like a mean cat with a coffee cup onto the floor. Not that I would know about that. Quality covers. Again, I do not have this kind of talent and I don't care to cultivate it. So I'm never going to do my own covers. I pay for them and I find no problem with it whatsoever. Again, you want to make sure that you are going to somebody who has knowledge of book covers, so they know the resolution that you would need. They know kind of what we talked about before. They know the idea of font size. I'm not having to walk them through, okay, I need font that really, no, this font, you can't even read it, so this doesn't work, sorry. If you're having to explain that to your person, maybe they're not the right one for you. Again, I pay anywhere from $75 to $100 for a flat cover. Maybe add another $100 on for a print cover. So max, I'm looking at about $200. Flat fee, one-time thing. Completely worth it. BookBub ads. Again, to get my book in front of 1 million people in their inbox once a day where they have invited it and they love my genre, yeah, I'm paying $500 for that, because I'm at that point in my career where that would make sense for me to do so. And again, I have the numbers to back it up through other authors who have done the same thing and who have seen the read-through. Again, at any point, if you have, and I would not do this with just one book. I'm going to throw that out there. If you have one book, do not get a BookBub ad, because what you are doing is trying to get read-through. They can't read through if there's only one book. So if you have a series, or if you have a lot of connected books, that is a great thing for you to do. Always do it with the first book of the series, not somewhere in the middle, because people get really frustrated with that. And you can continue doing this. Kristen Painter, like I said, she does a BookBub, and because she's had such success. BookBub, you pay for it, but they also get a little kickback from Amazon. So they want to have books that are successful in their, that's why they're picky about which ones they choose. They want successful books. Because they make money off of them, not just from us paying for them, but the kickback from Amazon every time somebody buys a book. So they take her because they have seen the success rate that she has had. So about every 6 months, she has the exact same book in the BookBub ad. Every 6 months, they will take her because she has a good relationship with them now. It's the same book every single time, but BookBub is always adding new people. And maybe 1 month, that person who has had BookBub for years is like, fantasy romance book right now, I'm not in the mood for it. Comes up again and they're like, I can do it this time. All right. So I highly recommend BookBub if you have a series. Loss leaders, again, it's that non-friction intro to you. So again, it's a loss leader because you have somewhere to move afterwards. Do not just price your book free or 99 cents because I'm a new person and no one has heard of me before. That doesn't work. It gives them the illusion that you are cheap for a reason. So consider that. The occasional Facebook ad, I don't do these very often, but I will see people who will add me as likes. I see a lot of uptick of likes, and when I see an uptick in likes, I see more activity, and when I see more activity, then I see people who are following through my links to my website and buying my books. It's kind of a long process. I don't do it very often, but what I love about Facebook is that you can do it for as low as $1 a day. It's not very expensive, and you can play around with it very quickly. You can change around a lot of the algorithms. And because you have a page and not a profile, you're able to see who am I marketing, where, is it 18-year-olds that are buying my book or 40-year-olds that are buying my book? Okay, I don't want to, target my 18-year-olds anymore. I'm going to make it very specific so that it's going to work for me. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm speeding through this. I don't want to miss anything else. Okay, so the best free marketing. Everybody loves free. Free is fun. Okay, so write the next book. This is the #1 advice from everybody. The more books you have, the more funnels you have to bring readers in, and you stay in that 30-day, new releases Amazon algorithm. They will push your book to more people. Write the next book. Don't throw one out there and just be like, yay, I did it, and expect the millions to start rolling in. This is a marathon. This is like 20 marathons. This is definitely not, Usain Bolt on the 100-meter dash. It's not happening. Write another book. If you always have the fresh release, you will be in the new releases section on Amazon. Remember, pad between those. If you have a huge, time between those two, pad it with a bundle, or like a short 5,000 word. That one might be acceptable to put for 99 cents. A little short story between the two releases. The more funnels you have, the more you can, the more money you can make, because the more ways that people have that can find you. Yay, more money. And that might have been, let's see here. Oh, okay. Series sell. I cannot stress this enough. Series sell. If a reader loves what you are doing, they want to stay in that world. They want to know more. Think about that while you are writing. Create secondary characters that might be perfect heroes later. Create a world that they want to live in longer. Think about that. Connected books. Maybe it's not a series, but it's, you have something like that same theme or genre. Maybe they're not connected, but maybe it's not a series, but it's always based in Wyoming. That's your thing. Or, you're always in the Bahamas, or you are always writing about surfers or something, all right? So that they know what they're getting every single time with you, and they're always going to be connected. And then Easter eggs for non-connected books. So I've had several, and I wish I would have thought of this when I was first starting out, because I just have trilogies and trilogies and trilogies and trilogies, and they're kind of separated and they're not connected whatsoever. If I had thought about this, I would have done it. Easter eggs. I have one who has written like 50 books at this point, and they're not all connected. She's got several series, kind of like I've said. They're trilogy here, quartet here, longer series there. But she has one character who's never going to have his own book ever, but is super quirky and colorful, and everybody loves him. And he always pops up at the right time, and he's in every single book. He's in every single book. And it's kind of that thing where like the readers are always like, and where is he going to pop up next? Where is he? And so, she's kind of created this little almost like wink with the readers that has created an additional, a little gotcha there. And they love it. He's never going to have his own book. He's never going to, he doesn't have enough of a backstory for that, but he's quirky and lovable, and he's everywhere. And, whether they're in, Wyoming or a surfing town, like somehow he's always popping up somewhere. And the readers love that. So that's another way to kind of market and get people wanting to read the next book. And that is basically it. I have talked at you guys for a long time. So does anybody have any questions? Justin?
Yeah. I put the price on my book, and like a few days ago, I went on Amazon to try to link it to another area. Mm-hmm. Now I looked at the price, and it was totally different from what I had it set for, and I decided that, okay, did I possibly change it somewhere? Mm-hmm. And I went back, I looked into the area where I set the prices, okay, and the price had not changed.
Do you have it listed anywhere else?
No, this was like the Amazon price.
Right, but is it listed for sale in any other venues?
Yes.
Is it for a different price?
Yes.
It matched. Amazon will always price match. They do not like being more expensive or different than anybody else. And so, and this is actually helpful if you want that perma-free, because Amazon, KDP, the Kindle Direct Publishing, will not let you make your book free. So they will let you go down to 99 cents, and that's the lowest they will let you go. But you can use a third party, and I talked about this the last time when I was doing my self-publishing. I use Draft to Digital, and that uploads to iBooks and Kobo and Barnes & Noble for me. So I upload it in one place, and it sends it to all of the other places. Draft to Digital will let me make my book $0. So if I want to make my book $0, I have to do it in Draft to Digital first, wait a couple days while it updates all of those fields, and then I have my friends go to Amazon and click on in my book's page on Amazon, like report a lower price. And Amazon will price match to 0. So if you've listed it somewhere else for a different price, Amazon is matching at some point, or they are attempting to do something with that. So my suggestion is you make the book price the same across the board, unless you're trying to price match down for Amazon. So that's what I would say. It's probably a price matching glitch of some kind, because it's recognizing that you're offering this book at a different price in a different location, and so
like ask them where this price point is coming from.
you can, or I mean, my assumption is that if you have it listed for a different price somewhere else, that it found that somewhere, because they've got bots that are constantly searching for the books that are on their website other places.
Yeah, I don't remember having it having any bookstore that I gave it to sell it for that low.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, they think that your book is set at a different price. Anybody else have any questions? I know I kind of threw a lot. Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge or insight on ink shares?
On what? Sorry.
Ink shares.
Ink shares. I'm not sure what that is at all.
Okay.
So.
It's just something I had barely heard of. It's something like if you can get like 1,000 people to commit, maybe there's only like 200 people to commit to a purchased copy, then they would do all your marketing, all your cover art, all this stuff. So it's basically like if you can fund.
So it's like a version of Kickstarter almost for books.
basically.
I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it. My main thing is if you are self-publishing, you want full control. So you have committed those numbers of books to something, and you might hate what they give you back. So if I'm paying money out, which giving people copies of books is essentially a form of loss or payment, I want total control over what I'm getting back. That's my personal preference. So the only reason I would give up control on my covers or my marketing or anything like that is because I'm receiving money from the publisher in the form of an advance in royalties. That's my personal preference. So yeah.
Speaking of Kickstarter, what are your thoughts about it?
I mean, my personal thing is if you need money to, put a book out there, I would just save up. I would find ways to do it as, cheaply as possible by trading talents. Find somebody who's amazing at grammar and finding plot holes, have them read your book for you. Find, or save up for a graphic artist that can do things cheaply for you, or barter. Maybe they need you to read their book or something like that. Barter and get it done. Use the money that you're receiving from that first book to kind of upgrade from books 2 on, and maybe even go back and change your cover to a more professional one. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, because I know we could probably ask you questions for another hour.
Right.
The room is committed, as many of you know, to the writing group. If you have questions that you would like Kat to answer, but there's running out of time, that's what the green paper is for.
Yes, you can write your question down and leave your email address, or if you just want to write down, I wish you had mentioned this,